Hey there, I have these two photos from Disneyland last year of my daughter meeting Jack and Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. And they are printed at 3 inches by 3 inches, and I'm using an 8.5 by 11-inch white cardstock background. And I'm grabbing the Sweater Weather 6-inch by 6-inch paper stack from Elle Studio. Everything I'm using today is part of the brand new Elle Studio October 2018 release. And I just love the colors that I'm using because they match the colors in the photos. So there's a lot of blue in the background on my photos. And what I want to do is kind of piecemeal these patterns together, almost like Sally's dress. So sort of in a quilted but messy way. And I am cutting things at different angles to make it look really cool on the side. My plan is to make a column of patterns over here, just like that. There's a bit of yellow in Sally's dress, so I'm going to grab the yellow, do the same thing. And then the teal. There's just a tiny bit of teal on her other arm. You can sort of see it, but I love this teal pattern so much that I just have to use it. I'm going to add some more blue, maybe some gray. And then I'm going to end with more blue. I like how the yellow is in the center right next to my photo because it really draws your eye there with the brightness in that color. Okay, so that's going to be my column of colors. Just going to swap out so the gray kind of bookends all the other colors in place. There we go. I really love this journaling tag from the kit, and I want to incorporate that somehow. I know it's a bit orange, but it's a really pale orange, whereas I feel if I used that bright orange journaling tag, it would kind of take away from all the colors and patterns on the right side there. So I'm just flipping through to see if there's any more journaling tags that would work, but I really think that this zigzag one would be perfect, and it definitely has that Nightmare Before Christmas feel to it. So what I'm planning to do is cut that in half and kind of tuck it around my photos. And I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet, if I'm going to do it portrait or landscape. But I think portrait is going to fit a bit better and allow me to add more journaling. Something like that. Before I move on, I've die cut the October 2018 digital die cuts out of black, and these are just some of the die cuts included in the digital file, but these are amazing and they match the leaves and flowers. They're sort of like leaves and seed pods really on the journaling tags and on the stamp this month, and they're just so fantastic. So I just want to make sure that I am going to have some room for them. Now, next, I want this layout to look a bit rough. So I am messing up the edges of my pattern paper with scissors here. And also making sure I have everything lined up straight along the right side of that layout. And I can kind of pull up those edges and get them really distressed. Can't get that tucked under. but really I think I want it under the yellow anyway. So I'm going to put it just like that, and I kind of hold it in place while I am getting the adhesive down. There we go. I don't ever use a really fancy tool to distress my my pattern papers. I always use like the edge of just a sharp pair of scissors. I find that works just fine for me. Just like that, you just run them over the edge a bit, and then you have a nice distressed edge. You could also add some ink to those edges too to further accentuate the distressing. Memory card ended up being full, so what I did was I cut all my papers to a column. So I cut it along the left side, distressed that, and then I stamped along 3 of the paper edges using the Thankful stamp, and that's the brand new stamp from Elle this month. So next I'm going to figure out how I can incorporate that really cool journaling tag in here. And what I'm going to do is just kind of tuck it under my photos on the bottom left and the top right, and then do another layer of my black die cuts, which looks so cool. So much contrast and pops of color on this page, which I really love. So in the Thankful stamp, you have 2 different borders, and the one that I used is included in that set, and I love it because it looks like the black stitching on Sally's dress, and that was kind of the look I was going for. So I'm just trying to figure out how to place these die cuts so they look really great. I have 2 spaces there. This is the 1 in a billion tag that I have from the kit, and I love that it's another piece of black, and I love that I can tuck it in those layers there. Then there's a little tab from the kit putting up there. Just trying to really get a good balance of embellishment here. There's a few different little tiny die cuts that I really love. So I love that this story one, and I like the idea of adding some gray there at the top left. I'm going to grab this Eek wood veneer from the Halloween wood veneers, and it's more of an eek of excitement than a scary one. These are the Autumn Fun stickers. There's a few in there that I can definitely see myself using, which I'll probably do when I'm finishing off the layout here. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this column of pattern adhered down to my page. So I'm going to place that right there. And then use dimensional adhesive for my photos. And I can journal on those journaling tags and tuck them under the photos as soon as I have that completed. I really love using 2 different photos on this layout. One photo would have definitely been enough, so if you only took one, that's perfect. But really the first photo, it kind of reinforces my journaling. The first photo, she was a bit scared and standoffish. She had no idea who these characters were. She just knew that they were mommy's favorite, so she kind of went with it. But I think she was a little bit nervous. She was 4 at the time this photo was taken, so we hadn't let her watch the movie yet. We thought it might be a bit too scary for her still. So she was a bit nervous, and that's what the journaling is going to be about on this page. So here's the stamp set here. This is the thankful stamp that I used earlier on with those big black borders. And I want to use the other border, which is so fun. It looks like little stitches, to add a bit more texture on the white part of my layout. So I'm going to put my stamping mat underneath my layout. I'm going to use my eraser to prime that stamp. And I'm just going to note where I want it, then pull out the journaling tag so that I don't stamp on top of it. And add that in there. And I'm going to do the same thing underneath the right photo. So I have a lot of balance going on here by doing things on the left and on the right. A lot of times you can see that I like to put my head down really close to the layout. It's not very easy for me to do on camera. Okay, that's super fun. So I'm just going to add my journaling here, and you can see I did that with my computer. Tucking that in. The reason why I do that, I'm just going to distress that before I adhere it down. The reason why I do that is just that it allows me to fit a lot more journaling in a tiny space. So one thing I want to do here is kind of continue the lines of the stitches that I stamped on here onto the journaling tag so that it kind of looks like the journaling tag was there when I stamped it. So you can see there that I just covered up the right side so that I didn't mess up what I had already stamped. And then I'm going to do the same thing here and continue the little stitched lines that I had already done there. Just going to try to line up the stamp as best as I can, especially the angle, because I want to get that angle right. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. That looks super cool. And I want to go ahead and distress those edges too. Distressing is super easy, but it is kind of messy. It puts a lot of little paper bits all over your work surface. Okay, then I'm going to add these awesome die cuts back in here. So super fun, these die cuts this month, especially when you cut them in black. They're just so striking. Just going to use a bit of liquid adhesive on there. And I want to kind of make it look like it's hanging down, sort of like the background in my photos. It's kind of a creepy tree sort of thing hanging, and I want to kind of mimic that on this page. Now I have a couple of extra pieces here, and I always like to do things in threes, so I'm going to put those at the top, and that is going to create a visual triangle there that will really make my photos the focus of the page. So all that black is just drawing your eye to the photos. Okay, I'm gonna put that gray journaling tag there because I don't have any gray on the left side of this page and I have quite a bit on the right side. Here's a little tip for you. If you need to pull something up and it's kind of adhered down, don't try to pull it up with your fingers because you're going to tear it. So I use a little spatula. I have a really old Making Memories spatula, but you can use any kind that you would get with a kind of a die cutting machine there. And I use that to go underneath of it to pull up what I need to pull up. If I did that with my fingernails, it would probably tear. So I'm going to work on my title now. And you guys know that titles are some of my favorite parts of the layout. And I grabbed my title builder stamp here. This is the original title builder stamp, and it is back in stock, which I'm so excited about. And I'm going to call this layout "What's This?" because it's about my daughter like not knowing who these characters were and being a bit confused and probably a little bit scared at the time. And I'm going to pair the word "this" from the title builder stamp with the Black Jane alphabet. And what I'm doing here is just making sure that I want it right there in that little area there. I love, love, love that this set has apostrophes, so I don't have to draw them in myself. Really handy. One thing I want to do is to add this border kind of below. So I'm going to ink up the border and mask off the patterns on the right side to make sure that I don't get those on there. And this border is going to be a little shelf that kind of holds it on there. Now you can see that I kind of messed that one up, but luckily this is a clear acrylic stamp, so I can kind of make that work. And what I'm going to do here is pull up the paper to really get a good clean image. And there's my head again. Sorry about that. I like to get really close in there. So that little line just creates a nice shelf for my title to sit on. Then I'm going to ink up the word "this" with a pretty yellow because I'm going to create a little visual triangle of yellow. I have one piece of pattern paper already on the right that's yellow. I'm going to use this yellow from Stampin' Up, which is the perfect color. This is more mustard. Not sure if that's a color that they have in stock anymore, but it's one of my favorites. And add the question mark and the apostrophe. I like to do this with an X-Acto knife. Okay, so I'm adding that little leaf back there and the seed pod. I'm going to pull that back up. So the seed pod there and the little leaf below it. And that's kind of framing my title in that space right there. Okay, now I need to put the third piece of yellow on my layout to finish off that yellow triangle, and I'm going to do that up at the top here. So I'm grabbing the Fave sticker from the Autumn Fun stickers, and I'm going to put that on my label here. Just going to cut a little tiny bit off of there so that it fits in the white section. I love that typewriter font because I use the typewriter font all the time, and I like to put a little dimensional adhesive on the end of that to kind of help it to stand up. I'm also going to go ahead and adhere the Equid veneer there. So now I have a nice little triangle of yellow on my page. Okay, so I want to add some bits of paint and ink around this page. So I'm just kind of taking some of my inks on a piece of white cardstock to see if the colors match. That one's a bit too blue, I think, or is that right? That looks kind of about right. So I'm going to add these ink bits around where the black parts are on my layout. Another thing I thought about that would be really amazing is embossing. So I'm using the Thankful stamp. I'm using the leaves from that stamp, and I'm embossing some silver embossing powder onto those die cuts. It's going to be so super cool. I'm just grabbing my Versamark ink and my silver embossing powder here. And I want to use a little stamp buddy there to make sure that it gets a nice clean image. It's not ideal for me to do this on the layout, but I don't want to pull up that leaf again just in case. I don't want it to tear. So I'm just kind of like tapping the embossing powder. Some of you are probably gasping right now. I'm tapping the embossing powder off of the layout to make sure that it, doesn't stick anywhere else. I'm also going to get a little brush before I do the heat embossing. I'm going to do the long leaf over here. And then do the smaller leaf up here. This is just going to add some metallic shine to the page. It's going to look really cool. I'm so excited about it. Next, I'm just going to grab my heat gun and set these little leaves here. So the embossing powder is set and it's shiny and gorgeous. Now I'm going to add some ink splatters here, and some of my ink does not want to splatter, so to cheat a little tiny bit, I'm just touching the drops of ink onto the page. Now I'm using that piece of extra cardstock I have just laying here as a mask so I don't get the ink on my journaling tags or my label or my title. I don't want to cover up that gorgeous title that I love so much. So I'm doing this navy, the teal, and then I'm going to do some yellow too. Oh, I love that big dot of yellow. That's so fun. So if you're worried about splatters and you think you can't do it, then just touch the end of the dropper onto the page. Okay, lastly, these are a product that I begged Ellie for. If you know the Noteworthy collection, you know that there are the little dots that are the dual tone dots in the Noteworthy collection, and I love them so much that I asked her to make a full sheet. So she created a half sheet with matching stars, which look really awesome on this layout. So I'm super excited about that. I'm also going to put this little happy die cut from the kit onto the bottom of the orange journaling tag there. And then grab a couple more pieces here. A little star is kind of getting lost, so I'm going to move him. I'm going to move that one up and then move this star down a bit. There we go. And with that, I'm going to call this layout done. This was such a fun one to create. I love the leaf die cuts. I love the puffy stickers. I love everything from the kit and those sweater weather 6" by 6" papers. The title was super fun to create with the Jane alphabet and the title builder stamp. Just such a fun layout, and this was definitely a really cool memory. These are my favorite characters to meet at Disneyland or Disney World, so it's pretty awesome that I now have this memory documented in my album. Check out all of the supplies I used on this process video in my video links. Thanks so much for watching and supporting my feed, and happy creating!